Welcome back. This is part 2 of our sharing on beneficial ownership. You can access part 1 of this sharing by clicking on the link provided below. In this video, we will look at the criteria and examples of BO for companies with shares. Who is a beneficial owner or BO? Criteria A. The person holds directly or indirectly in not less than 20% of the shares of the company. Criteria B. The person holds directly or indirectly in not less than 20% of the voting shares of the company. Criteria C. The person has the right to exercise ultimate effective control, whether formal or informal, over the company or the directors or the management of the company. Criteria D. The person has the right or power to directly or indirectly appoint or remove a director who holds the majority of the voting rights at the meeting of directors. Criteria E. The person is a member of the company and, under an agreement with another member of the company, controls alone a majority of the voting rights in the company. Criteria F. The person has less than 20% of shares or voting shares, but exercises significant control or influence over the company. A person who doesn't meet any of the above criteria will not be deemed a beneficial owner. Example 1. 1 is the sole shareholder of Company A, and all these shares carry voting rights. As 1 owns 20% or more of the voting shares in the company, 1 is a BO as he has fulfilled criteria A and B. As he owns 100% of the shares, he would also meet criteria C and D, as he has the ultimate control over the company and he can appoint and remove any director in the company, thereby he controls the majority of votes in the board meeting. His name and particulars must be entered into the register of BO. When confirming his beneficial ownership of the company, he has to declare that he has a direct ownership as he directly owns the shares of Company A. And he has met criteria A, B, C, and D of the criteria of BO. What is the difference between criteria A and criteria B? Before we go to the second example, some of you may be asking what is the difference between criteria A and B, as these two criteria look similar. Criteria A focuses on the percentage of total shares owned, while criteria B looks at the percentage of total voting rights held. Distinguishing these two criteria is relevant when a company has issued different classes of shares, with certain classes of shares carrying no voting rights while others may have voting rights or multiple voting rights. If your company only has one class of ordinary shares, and each share carries one vote, then the percentage of your share ownership will be the same as the percentage of your voting rights. For the examples that we'll discuss next, let's assume all the shares mentioned have the same voting rights, meaning each share gets one vote. Example 2. There are 4 shareholders in Company B. 1. Sunita, Lee and Deborah holding 15%, 20%, 25%, and 40% respectively. Sunita, Lee and Deborah are deemed to be the BO of Company B because each of them holds 20% or more of the shares in the company. Their names and particulars must be recorded in the register of BO. When confirming their respective beneficial ownership in the company, they should declare that they have direct ownership as they directly own the shares of the company, and that they have met criteria A and B of the criteria of BO. Please note that 1 is not a BO as he doesn't meet any criteria of BO. When providing BO information to the company, 1 should select the box I own the shares, but I am not considered a beneficial owner as I do not meet any of the criteria of beneficial ownership. Example 3. Company X holds 40% of the shares in Company A, with 1 owning 80% of Company X. 1 is thus deemed to have an indirect interest of 32%, 40% x 80% of the shares of Company A through Company X. As a result, he is regarded as the ultimate owner and BO of Company A through indirect ownership. 1's name and particulars must be recorded in the register of BO. When confirming his beneficial ownership in Company A, he must declare that he has an indirect ownership reflecting that his beneficial ownership in Company A is through Company X, and that he has met criteria A and B of the criteria of BO. Example 4. Company X is a shareholder of Company A, holding 20% of its shares. 1, in turn, owns 20% of the shares in Company X. Consequently, 1 is deemed to hold an indirect interest of 4% in Company A. To calculate 1's indirect interest, we multiply 1's ownership percentage in Company X by Company X's ownership percentage in Company A. 20% x 20% equals 4%. In this case, 1 is not BO of Company A because his effective interest in Company A is only 4%. When providing BO information to the company, he should select the box I own the shares, but I am not considered a beneficial owner as I do not meet any of the criteria of beneficial ownership. Example 5. Deborah owns shares in these companies. For this case, we are looking for the beneficial owner of Company A. Is Deborah a BO in Company A? Her effective direct and indirect ownership is calculated as follows. Her direct interest in Company A is 7%. Her indirect interest through Company X is 8%. Her indirect interest through Company Y is 12%. The total direct and indirect interest of Deborah in Company A is 27%. In this case, since Deborah's direct and indirect interest is 27%, which is above the 20% threshold, she is deemed to be a BO of Company A. When confirming her beneficial ownership in Company A, she has to declare that she has direct and indirect ownership in the company, and that she has met criteria A and B of the criteria of BO. Example 6. There are 6 shareholders in Company A. Deborah, Sunita, Juan and Lee have signed a private agreement to collectively exercise their voting rights in Company A at every meeting. This arrangement represents 60% of the total voting rights in the company. Therefore, Deborah, Sunita, Juan and Lee are considered as BO based on this joint arrangement. When confirming their respective beneficial ownership of a company, they must declare that the control is by other means, and that they have met criteria E. Additionally, please note that Mr. Singh, who holds 30% of the shares in Company A, is also recognized as a BO as he owns 20% or more of the shares of the company. His particulars should be recorded in the register of BO2. Example 7. In this example, we want to bring to your attention that a person may not be a member or director of the company, but if his recommendations are always followed, he can be considered a beneficial owner under criteria C. Let me give you an example. Mr. Fong is the founder of the company. He has recently transferred all his shares to his 2 children and resigned as a director. Now, his 2 children own the company's shares and are the only directors. Mr. Fong still sits in the board and management meetings where he remains active and exercises significant influence over business decisions. He would also make recommendations to other shareholders on how to vote, and those recommendations are always or almost always followed. Given the circumstances, Mr. Fong may have met criteria C, and if so, his name should be included in the register of BO. When confirming his beneficial ownership of the company, he has to declare that the control is by other means, and that he has met criteria C. Example 8. In this example, Chin has appointed Simon to hold 20% of the shares of T Company on his behalf. On record, the shares are held in the name of Simon, but he is not the real owner, he is merely a nominee for Chin. So, Chin should be considered the BO of the shares as he is the ultimate beneficial owner of the shares. The law requires Chen's name and particulars to be included in the register of beneficial owners. Example 9. There are 3 shareholders in Company R, which is running a restaurant business. The shareholders are Juan, 70%, Sunita, 20%, and Lee, 10%. Juan and Sunita are investors who are not involved in the operation of the business, whereas Lee is the one managing the business, and his opinion is always consulted. Since Lee can exercise significant control or influence over the company, although he only holds 10% shares, he is deemed to be a beneficial owner. When confirming his beneficial ownership of the company, he should declare that the control is by other means, and that he has met criteria F. Senior management. When a beneficial owner cannot be identified, companies are allowed to name their senior management, natural persons, as beneficial owners. This person could be the managing director or CEO of a group of companies. This provision could be applicable in the following circumstances. A. The company has no beneficial owner. B. The beneficial owner of the company cannot be identified, or C. The company is still in the process of obtaining its beneficial ownership information. Let's look at an example now. Example 10. Company AA. A Malaysian company is gathering information about its beneficial owners and has been given the following details. A. That the company's ultimate holding company is AA, Italy, SRL, a private company in Italy. B. AA, Italy, S.R.L's shares are held equally by 3 retirement funds in Europe, each holding around 33.3%. These retirement funds do not participate in the operation and management of the company, they are merely investors. C. Despite the inquiry, no specific natural person has been identified as the beneficial owner. Considering this information, the board of directors of Company AA, Italy, SRL has determined that Mr. Marco Rossi, the managing director of AA, Italy, SRL should be designated as the beneficial owner of AA Sendirian Berhad, as he ultimately oversees the group's business operations. This is just an example to explore a possible situation where the senior management is identified as the beneficial owner. Companies with complex structures face additional challenges in determining their beneficial owners due to the layers of ownership and control involved, often spanning across different jurisdictions. Therefore, conducting a thorough internal review and examination is essential. This includes reviewing legal documents such as articles of association, shareholder agreements, and management policies to identify all levels of ownership and control within the group. In summary, thorough consideration of all information is crucial for accurate beneficial ownership declarations. It ensures compliance with regulations, upholds ethical standards, and fosters transparency. This concludes Part 2 of our sharing. Please refer to the guidelines for the reporting framework for beneficial ownership of companies issued by SSM for further information. If you are a client of Stanley Co., our servicing team is ready to assist you with navigating and complying with the complex beneficial ownership requirements. Thank you for watching.